the champions in this, and they, at one point in time it was the Senate Democrats who we thought had held up the appointment and were working very vigorously to try to reverse things. Sadly, what has occurred, and there is no reversing that at this point. And when I spoke to the governor's office at that time, to sort of pick up where Senator Serrano left off, and his work and Senator Kruger's work and all the Senate Democrats really, I think, showed the governor's office that this wasn't just another appointment to another operating corporation or another public benefit corporation or another public authority. Because most public authorities and public benefit, they have to do with highways, they have to do with railroads, they have to do with waterways, they have to do with how industrial parks get built. They don't have to do with running of a small town, and I don't think they recognize, I think they just saw this as something else that they had, and what really frustrated me when I called the governor's office was, as Senator Serrano said, where is the respect here? If you didn't know the history of this process, you should have picked up the phone and called someone. And it's not as if they're not in contact with me and Senator Serrano literally every day. I mean, as I said to the person on the second floor, don't we speak every day? What's the one subject we speak about? Whether it's River Cross, Island House, Westview, how the operating corporation is running, there's only one subject you and I ever speak about. One subject, Roosevelt Island. And they basically said to me, you should have made this known to us then. And you know what? In a way, they're right. You know what? We should have been more vigilant. We should have been watching. I just, because it was a new administration, and they had some very smart people that they brought in, and some people that were from previous administrations. I made the mistake that they were looking into history, and the fact is, you can't make that assumption. So, I have to say, I'm partly to blame. If we had been a little more vigilant, we may have at least been able to let them know, and we warned them of the anger that was going to come their way from the community. And I think you guys have expressed the feelings of this island quite well. I think the question going forward is, what do you want to happen next? Do you want more articles written? Do you want more demonstrations? Or do we want to see the governor put us back on track to where we were? And I think that's really the goal. And I think what you guys need to discuss is what you want out of it. Is it a question of just getting Mr. Kellner put on the board? Is it a question of more formalizing these referendums that we had? How do we formalize that? Is it a question of moving forward with legislation that says, all of the public members on the board are Roosevelt Island residents, and we put forward legislation last year that gave the Assembly and the Senate slightly more control, at least over some of the appointments on the Roosevelt Island operating corporation. Is that something we want to look at? These are all things that you as a community need to let us know, because when we get that bite at the apple at the governor's office, it's going to come quick, and we're going to need to know what the community's position is. And do I expect everyone to be united? Of course, everyone on Roosevelt Island always agrees on everything all the time, right? Right, Linda? All the time. But we need to have a consensus of how we want to move forward with this, because I think there's a chance to both educate the governor's office and let him have a victory here. This is a governor that's shown he's willing to listen. I know I've gotten to work with him, the senator's gotten to work with him, where he's put forward an idea, and we said, hey, if you just tweak it like this, if you just look at it from this approach, it's better. And he says, you know what, you're right, let's do it that way. So I think there's a real opportunity here. We just need to go about it in the right way, and I think now is the time to be constructive and say to the governor's office, we want to work with you, we want to show you what's going on, and why you can really, something that his father started. This is a governor who was very big on his father's legacy, and this island really came of age under his father. And if this is about expanding his father's legacy, this is an opportunity for him to do something here, and that's, I'm proud to say, and I know Senator Trump, we both have very good relationships with the governor. I can say this is sadly been, and it was a very big hiccup. This is the one hiccup we've had, and I'm sure there are going to be hiccups in the future. But I think there's a real chance to take this experience and turn it around and make it a positive one, not only for him, but for the island. And that's what I would hope would come out of. I know I can't stay too much longer, but we're happy to take questions. But I think it really needs to come from you guys, whether it's a resolution, a statement of principle, what you want to see coming forward. And the Senator and I are going to look at that, and we're going to be honest with you and tell you what's realistic, what's not realistic, and we're going to have to prioritize what we want to get out of this. But I think that's where we really need to focus going forward. So again, I thank everybody for coming here tonight, and Bill, do you want to call on people for questions?
I see the first hand over to your left, so I'll start there.
Yeah, I think you both hit it right on the head. It's a matter of respect. Elliot Spitzer showed us considerable respect in 2007 when he trusted us enough to put on an election to offer him duties for the board of directors. The question is, does this governor, is he likely to show us the same kind of respect? And I think we need to meet with him at some point and convince him that we can be entrusted with that kind of respect moving forward.
Matt, if I can just respond to that briefly. But let's just remember something. At that point in time, the RIOC president was somewhat speaking out of turn. He was making comments at that time on behalf of the second. He was making promises he couldn't deliver. And if you remember, what ended up occurring is RIRA ended up putting on a referendum, and then we had to go and convince the governor, oh, look at the strength that this referendum shows that this island has. And I think we need to do that same type of thing. It's not a matter of the governor saying this is okay. I think it's a matter of showing the governor, hey governor, you need to pay attention. So
I'd like to just ask, if I could, just as a relative newcomer, if you could just give us a feel, is it going to take legislation such as you've proposed, or can it happen by a decision from the governor who just says, I've decided, I'll issue an executive order or whatever, that 5, 6, or 7 members of the RIOC Board of Directors will be island residents? Does it take legislation, or is there some other means that we can get to the same end?
It could be either or. We proposed legislation because we felt that we weren't seeing that level of movement from the governor's office at that time, Governor Patterson. But again, it doesn't take legislation. He could do it himself.
No, I think the senator makes a good point. It can be either or, but the power of law is always stronger than a memorandum of understanding, a handshake agreement, an executive order. Because an executive order can be reversed, a memorandum of understanding can be ripped up, and a handshake agreement can always be ignored. A law cannot. And it always takes, I was surprised when they vetoed the bill we did last year. When the governor's council called me, they came up with a wholly new argument for why they were vetoing the bill. And they told me they were vetoing the bill because it made all 7 public appointments had to be RIOC residents. And they said the governor had to reserve the right to be able to put whoever he wanted on the board for those 2 slots wherever they lived. And that has what led to having a gentleman who, while has some connection to the island, is not an island resident on this board right now. And so, I think one of the things we need to convince this governor of, if nothing else, is that all of the public board members, that he has non-residents with an outside view, and that's his, the director of budgets appointment and the chair of the board. They can look, but I believe personally, and this is just my opinion, and people may disagree with me, that every appointment on the board should be an island resident.
Joyce,